But let's go back, and I request everyone, let's stay to our subject. Our subject today is governance, and therefore questions of POSCO, ArcelorMittal or Nokia, food security bill, lack of decision making. If we can get an answer to that, then perhaps we'll address the entire issue in even more detail. Our third speaker speaking for the motion is Swapan Das Gupta, who believes governance is the reason for the slowdown. Dr. Das Gupta.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I'll just take off from something which Mr. Ganguly started off and saying that this issue is very complex. Now, I don't know if you've been through a wine tasting ceremony. It's a very elaborate ritual, accompanied by a lot of swirling of glasses and twirling. And whenever the sommelier puts the wine, the bouquet from the wine up to his nose, they always invariably pronounce, it is very complex. Now, are you enlightened by this term, it is very complex? We've been told that it is very complex. There is the Fed Reserve operating. There is the OECD. There is the Syrian war, which is all impinging on our existence. The Fed existed even when we were doing 9.5%. The Fed will continue to exist even if we go down to 1%. The oil cartels were there when we were there doing 9%. They will not disappear overnight. But tell me, oil extraction is very complex. But what has it got to do with the establishment of a steel mill in POSCO, in Odisha? The POSCO case? Why should that affect this? Why should oil extraction cripple the entire iron ore sector and cause a great bonanza to other places? Why should oil extraction lead to a complete paralysis of coal production and benefit Indonesia and Australia more than India? These are questions which have to be answered. And I think the questions need to be answered because we need to get down to the whole thing about where do we constantly pass the buck. Why is it, if global growth has slowed down considerably, has India emerged as a net exporter of capital? In other words, there is capital in this country, except it doesn't find India to be a very attractive place to invest in. And these are not unpatriotic souls. These are not people who are doing hawala business. These are canny business people who believe that they get maximum returns out of their money. So these are questions which have to be answered. I think it's very easy sometimes to push the mirror and look at extraneous factors. Indira Gandhi used to say, corruption is a global phenomenon. Wonderful. So it ceases to be a domestic phenomenon. I think it's that mentality which we are talking about. If we believe that you can talk up the economy, only a year ago, Mr. Chidambaram was saying that we will reach double digits. Double digit of what? We are now sub 5, as they are calling it. And in between, we are detecting something called green shoots. And if from statistics to botany, we are traversing the entire thing to try and explain a simple factor of how at every stage we've mismanaged coal, we've mismanaged iron ore, we've mismanaged clearances, we've mismanaged environment. Take the case of Lavasa. Some people may be familiar, a new township. Maharashtra Environmental Board clears it, the center says no. Same is the case with POSCO. Land acquisition is there in Odisha, but there is a central veto. But again, if India is universally collapsing, why is it that some states are registering double-digit growth? Why is it that Bihar, which Pawan is very proud to represent, albeit from a distance, is doing so well? Why is it Gujarat that is doing so well? And surely it has to have something. I mean, certainly Gujaratis are known to be entrepreneurial, okay. Biharis never had that reputation so far. So they've acquired it. So they're able to manage something. That's the point. Today we are in a situation where there is policy paralysis because there are contradictory impulses working on the system. There is one set of people who says, dig a hole, fill it up, and then India will become another Sweden. You'll create a welfare state in that. No question of how you can afford it. Someone else believes you can have a trickle-down theory. It's the job of the leadership to try and reconcile conflicting impulses and make them into a coherent policy. What we lack today is that sense of coherence. What has oil got to do with the rising price of onions? I mean, okay, they're hoarding in Damascus. But does that mean onion prices in Delhi should go up? I mean, surely the knock-on of that's carrying the knock-on effect a bit too far.
Right.
It's a question you, at one level, you're not even sure whether you want a free market economy, whether you want to return the state to the commanding heights. You have got your concepts in a complete muddle, and at the same time, you experiment. You try and use India as a permanent guinea pig. And it's that principle of using India as a guinea pig which has been caused by government, which has resulted in the situation we are in today.
Swapan Dasgupta has put his point of view in a very articulate manner. And with his usual deftness of style, has completely avoided a detailed discussion on the food bill because he's aware that the BJP eventually went along with the food bill, so the opposition is not to defend. He has also avoided the issue which Abhik raised, so I know, Swapan Dasgupta, I'm provoking you, so you come back to it on the opposition charge that he says the opposition has turned parliament to an internal den of dissent.
Well, that increases the majority on the other side, Mr. Goswami. If someone walks out, it increases the majority. I'm sure you know that much of simple arithmetic, that if the opponents don't vote against you, your majority increases. That is not an obstacle if they walk out.
We will. No, this is something I enjoy every time I meet Swapan Dasgupta. I'm sorry I indulged myself for a bit. Now let's hand it over to Sanjay Jha. When there is trouble that is created as a fallout of activism, should political parties not take the responsibility for it? On the charge that governance is the reason for India's economic slowdown, Sanjay Jha.
Yeah, thank you very much. A pleasure to be here with the young leaders of a future and a dynamic India. I'm a very optimistic man. I can tell you that I like the motion because it makes us natural victors. Because you are acknowledging on the other side that when the average growth of the UPA government over the last 9 years has been close to 8.4%, you're acknowledging that governance has not been a hindrance. Because the growth has been staggering, outstanding, if you compare it in a relative sense. And my friend Abhik here made the right point. The growth is never to be assessed in absolute terms. It's always a relative. Globalization is a two-way sword. It works for you. It can also work against you. I think one of the panelists there asked and said, why should we worry about, I think Swapan said that, what happens in Europe or the United States? Well, let me tell you, the newspapers, including both these newspapers, have spent considerable newsprint telling you why there has been a US government shutdown. And I can tell you, hold onto your conscience right now. And if I were to ask you a question as to which country in the world today that you see as a model of governance, I think you will, in your heart of hearts, don't tell me that, especially those on that side, it will be the United States of America. So what explains the US economic slowdown for several years? It's not always and necessarily governance. There are always a multiplicity of factors. And let me give you one more. In the last 9 years of UPA government, this is the government that has faced what has been seen as the Great Recession of the 2007-8, when the Lehman Brothers crash was on account of the mortgage scam in the United States. After 1931, the Great Depression, after roughly 80 years, the world was in a convergence because they said this is a catastrophe, a cataclysmic disaster in the making. Which country survived that? China, and one of the prominent countries that did an extraordinary job was India. And even as a lot of youngsters here sit and look at what's happened in the economy over the last 10 years, please remind yourself, we are a vibrant young democracy. This is the country that in 1947 had 90% of people living below the poverty line. Now, a few percentage here and there is 21%. It's a remarkable leap. We are a young country. We compare ourselves with the United States, with Europe. I think it's good that we set ourselves very exacting standards. But let us occasionally also romanticize reality. The second point, our literacy in 1947 was 16%. Today, it's 75%. Education, that's the big answer that you get there. Look at life expectancy. In 1947, an average Indian lived to an age of 26 or 27. If you take 27, it's right now just the reverse. An average life expectancy in India is 72. Have we not made leaps? The truth is we have. And I want to just make a few points here. India has become, over the last 3 years, the world's third largest economy in purchasing power parity, which means what a dollar buys in America and what a rupee buys in India, if you were to make a comparison of that, we are the world's third largest economy. Is anybody in this room, including Arnab Goswami and Bodhi, not proud of that achievement? I think, while we question it, and it's important, I do agree, and I'll acknowledge that at the very beginning, governance is a challenge. It's a challenge for India. It's a challenge for any economy in any stage of its growth. Because governance is forced upon you by changing society, by changing expectations, by changing regulations, by changing dreams, by competition. We'll live with that forever. This debate should happen 20 years from now with the same degree of passion. It doesn't change. And I want to, move on by addressing a quick question here from what, Swapan said. POSCO, Swapan, for your information, was resisted by the local councils of people within the territories where POSCO was to be made. It is an allegation that the government tried to interfere and smother that. I think we need to get into the facts there. Point number 2, I was assuming you will be more environment friendly because Lavasa has actually got strictures coming from the Ministry of Environment. And I want to address that issue. And before I just address one more point and move on, that end of day, India, let me tell you, you said subsidies are a waste. But I want to tell you this. Would you feel proud of this great India story if 70% of Indians are not as well off as we are? If they go to bed not getting a good, happy meal, if they go without education, if they don't get medicines when they're sick. That is not the India story. That is the story that we talk about in UPA. The Bharat and India needs to come closer together. They cannot really move away. And my last line.
Sanjay, we're over time.
Yeah, and my last line. That end of day, I think you've got to realize that global factors is a reality, as has been what Abhik has mentioned, not a policy paralysis, but a parliamentary paralysis. And third but not the least, I will acknowledge we have had some coalition compulsions. It's a cliche, but it's a reality too. Thank you very much.
Sanjay Jha, for your positive attitude, we give you the Positive Man of the Debate Award. Because in agriculture at 1.9% and manufacturing at 1%, you have to have a lot of positive energy to believe that you've got it all right. But let's go to the next speaker. We are not going to get into a straight debate.
Good, we expect a good agriculture boost this year.
If you were to say that our expectations are too high and hence we should be happy with manufacturing at 1%, that would be a Marie Antoinette kind of comment. And I know you will not risk that.